All righty, awesome. Welcome, everybody. My name is Anya Aleman, Innovation Director here at Ascender. If this is your first time attending one of our events, welcome. It's really nice to see you here. If this is not your first time here, welcome back. It's very nice to see familiar faces, familiar names I can see. Um, I also wanted to point out that this event is part of Global Entrepreneurship Week happening right now. There is a Global Entrepreneurship Week, and that means that there are hundreds of events that are entrepreneur focused being held everywhere in the world throughout this entire week. If you haven't checked it out yet, we're going to be sharing a link. There are 8 different events happening in Pittsburgh where entrepreneur focused organizations and the local universities have been organizing these events. Free and open to all. So I highly recommend checking out their website and figuring out what other opportunities are out there for you that might benefit you and your business as you move and grow forward. Ascender is Pittsburgh's community for entrepreneurs. We offer educational programs, mentorship, expert coaching, business incubation, and also have and run an entrepreneur focused co working space located in Bakery Square here in East Liberty. You can check out more about what we do, what other programs are out there, and all of the resources we provide in our website. So we will be sharing information in the chat box. So make sure that you take some time to browse and figure out what are other resources that you can access through the Ascender virtual space. Today's event is part of our free monthly programming. Each month, we zero in on a topic that is critical to the success of entrepreneurs. This month, we are exploring accelerating your success, and you can find additional articles, videos, recordings of today, and also our upcoming events. In our website, we all have packaged it out in a way for you to keep on learning in regards to like what the success looks like for you, how do you build to grow, and what are some actionable steps that you can take. We have one more workshop this month, and that's going to happen on November 17th. We have Latrenda Cheryl, who will walk us through different strategies that will place growth at the center of all of your work. She's going to explore daily practices that will make you more productive as an entrepreneur, and also briefly touch on how can entrepreneurs price their time, products, and services appropriately so that you're not undercutting your value. So today's workshop is going to explore a little bit more about if you have a product, how do you take it to scale, and what are some of the steps that you need in regards to manufacturing that you need to consider and prepare for right now. The next workshop is going to focus more on growth mindset. So as a founder, as a business owner, how do you really get organized and get things in place to deliver on the action steps that you need to take in order to grow your business? And then one more announcement before we continue on the next section of our workshop today. We have our year-end 2021 celebration coming up next month. So we will have an opportunity for folks to network, connect, and celebrate. This is going to be all about exploring and understanding that entrepreneurs, amongst many things, they are resilient people. So this is going to be a celebration and an opportunity for entrepreneurs and also other different partners to connect and come together to reflect on the end of the year. So Ben will be putting in more links for you to check it out. So there are a lot of things and opportunities to connect here at Ascender. So just make sure that you leave some time to explore what works best for you. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker today, Connie Plaucka. She is joining us from Catalyst Connection. Connie joined Catalyst Connection in 2005 and brings over 25 years of global sales, business development, and product development experience in her role as a managing director of regional initiatives at Catalyst Connections. She leads a team that secures and executes grant initiatives to support manufacturers and build the region's vibrancy. So I am very excited to have Connie today and really walk us through understanding how do you map out, if you're an entrepreneur who has a product, how do you really start thinking about how do you connect with manufacturing, how does that look like, and what are actionable steps that you can take tomorrow in order to figure out this process. So Connie, why don't you start by telling us a little bit more about yourself and your role at Catalyst Connection, and then we'll go from there to the presentation part of today's session.
Sure. Well, hello, everyone. It's nice to virtually meet you. My name is Connie, and I'm the VP of Consulting at Catalyst. I've been with Catalyst Connection for almost 16 years now. And prior to Catalyst, I spent 25 years in industry working for small and mid-sized manufacturers. And during that time, I started out on the technical side of the house, but at one point, I went back and got my MBA and switched to the business side. And I spent the bulk of my career directing global sales forces and in the latter part before joining Catalyst, leading a strategic planning team and, more importantly, strategic initiatives, so that making sure that those initiatives were actually implemented. So what I love about working at Catalyst is that, you know, we work with a variety of manufacturers across the spectrums, all shapes and sizes, and everybody's situation is different. Their problems are different, and I love problem solving. So this is right up my alley, is being a consultant, working with manufacturers. So what we're going to be talking about over the next hour, I want to give you a little bit of an overview about who Catalyst is, if you've never heard of us, some of the advantages of working with contract manufacturers, things to think about when you start looking for that partner, tips for really building strong relationships with the contract manufacturers, and some mistakes to avoid. So let's talk about Catalyst. If you've never heard of us, we're a private not-for-profit consulting group. And our mission is to work with small and mid-sized manufacturers. We have a consulting team on staff. We've got about 28 employees. About half of those are consultants. And we have 3 practice areas. One is focused on business growth and innovation. So really helping companies figure out and achieve their growth goals. So growing their top line. We have another group that focuses on operational improvement. So things that are going to help you improve your bottom line. And the third is workforce development and organizational development. So helping companies become an employer of choice. We're located at Mill 19, which is in the Hazelwood Green area of Pittsburgh. And if you're not familiar with this site, Mill 19 I think it was started around in the 1940s. And it was originally housed munitions during World War II. After the war, J&L Steel turned it into a rolling mill. And then in the 70s, I think it was, just drew a blank on the name, switched over to a different steel company. And then a few years ago, RADC Park took it over, and now it's becoming a really innovative manufacturing or space to support manufacturing. So as you can see in the picture, that we still have the skeleton of the original steel mill, but these modern buildings are placed within that skeleton. So in building 1, there's Catalyst Connection, CMU, the ARM Institute, so the Advanced Robotics for Manufacturing, the Manufacturing Futures Initiative, is all housed in that first building. We have Motional, which is an autonomous car manufacturer and designer, is in building 2, so the next building over. So they're going to be putting an incubator space in. It's a really innovative area. So Catalyst, we're not a standalone organization. We're part of what's known as the Industrial Resource Center program in Pennsylvania. And as you can see, as shown on the map, there are 7 centers in Pennsylvania like Catalyst. So Catalyst handles the 12 counties in southwestern Pennsylvania. And we've been around for 35 years now. And we're also part of a national program that's known as the MEP Network. And there's centers like Catalyst in every state. So, which is great. And we get we're part of NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology. We receive federal funding, as well as, in Catalyst case, we receive some state funding as well. And it's this type of a multi, how you call it, a cost share program that has really made the MEP program so successful over the years. So the federal, appropriations that we get, pays for a significant part of the cost so that we're able to work with small and micro manufacturers. And the balance is funded by state organizations, by foundations, plus client fees. In Catalyst's case, we also have a number of grant initiatives, and one of them is this Maker to Manufacturer initiative. And it's really focused on folks like yourselves. So folks that are, it could be you're still in the proof of concept, that entrepreneurial innovation phase of your business, up to companies with 50 employees or less. And so those micro manufacturers, even when you start scaling up, it's difficult sometimes to, you bounce back and forth across the profitability line. And this initiative really wants to help companies successfully cross that line and stay, basically build sustainability. I'm showing a couple of things on this slide that are part of this initiative. One is an asset map. So there's a link, and I believe after this workshop, you'll get a copy of this. But if you were to click on any one of the boxes, whether it's community support organizations or commercialization or human capital or sources of funding, there'll be links that you can go to find more information. So it basically helps you save time if you're looking for something specific. The other thing that I want to mention is under this grant initiative, we also have technical assistance funding that's available to small and mid-sized manufacturers or entrepreneurs for up to $3,000 to $5,000. And this is a matching fund. You can match it either, cash or just in kind, your time and effort that goes into it. And you could use it for a variety of things, whether it's developing prototypes, or if you need to have market research done or business case developments, or someone helping you with production strategies, any of those types of things can be used for this. So if you have an interest, you want to investigate this, just, reach out to me. I'd be happy to help. So let's talk about working with contract manufacturers. That's really what we're here for today. And there's a lot of advantages to working with these types of folks. Thanks. So, one of it is that, higher quality products. I mean, the great thing about these contract manufacturers is they've been doing this for a lot of years. They've got the expertise. So it can really save you time and effort. It can save cost because you don't have to buy the equipment yourself. You don't have to hire the people to run the equipment. There's resource savings involved. So a lot of times these contract manufacturers, they've been around for a number of years. So they're implementing things like lean manufacturing, things that are going to help them reduce waste. And this can mean cost savings, a smaller carbon footprint, things that are going to benefit you if you work with them. Certainly, reduce labor savings. As I mentioned before, you don't have to hire your own staff to produce the product. Because they're already up and running, it could help you get your product to market faster. Scalability. So depending on, how fast you plan to scale, they can help you do that. And some of these manufacturers offer end-to-end options. So that means that, they can handle the entire process for you or help you with it from start to finish. So helping you, finalize the design for your product or the design for manufacturing, helping you with material purchases, the process itself, assembling, packaging, shipping, so that keeping that entire process under one roof. So that's something to consider. That being the case, it's not always, the right choice for everybody. So, but when it does make sense is, if there's going to be high startup costs. So this can help by using a contract manufacturer that's already established. It can help you save on those startup costs. If you don't have the capital, in hand, because this is an art group that's already up there manufacturing other products. Again, that can help save you time, save you money. It can help you get to that quality product faster because they have that expertise in-house. And because they are an established company, that can help you build that positive brand, particularly if you're going to be shipping internationally or something. Or if you have seasonal demand, if whatever the nature of your product is, if there are going to be peak seasons, even if you're going to be producing your product in-house, perhaps you don't have the capacity to produce during peak season. So contract manufacturers could help in that case. So when you start looking for a manufacturer, something to keep in mind is that not every contract manufacturer out there is going to be interested in working with startups, but there are some that will, that are very interested. And those who are, it could be for a variety of reasons. Maybe they're looking to give back to their communities. That might be they're looking for exposure to new market opportunities. So, working with startups like any of you could help them, particularly if they're building a long-term relationship with you, could help them move into new markets or help them, in that respect. Some cases they're looking to expand their customer base and they see you as a customer and you're producing your products for you. One thing to keep in mind is that, and this is something that a lot of startups make a mistake, is that they contact contract manufacturers a little too late in the development phase. If you put yourself in the contract manager's shoes, they would prefer to meet with startups earlier in the design process. So this allows them to provide guidance to you into what is the right design for manufacturability and assembly for the product. So just something to keep in mind. So it's always important to do your homework. There's a lot of resources out there. I just put a few here just to look at, build scale or ideation. Some of these are about developing products and scaling products. There's a Survey Monkey here to help you assess what is your manufacturing readiness level, where you're currently at in your development process. Also, the four important questions to ask yourself before you contact the contract manufacturer. So, do you need a custom part or can you use something that's off the shelf? So you might have seen the term COTS parts, so commercial off-the-shelf parts. So think about that. The product that you're going to have manufactured, is it something, or are there components of that could be commercial off the shelf as opposed to designing something brand new? What production process do you want to use to produce your particular product? A lot of times this is going to be dictated by the material you want your product made out of. So thinking about that is, what is the material that you'll be using? Is it steel? Is it a polymer of some sort? Is it something else? Think about that. Is there an assembly that's going to take place in your process? Or is it a single part, whatever your design is? And probably most important is, do you have a good understanding of your customers' needs? So what's the problem that they have? How is your product going to help them solve that problem? And knowing this information when you go to talk to the manufacturer is going to help elevate you in their eyes that you've done your homework on this respect. So when you get ready to start approaching or looking for your contract manufacturer, a lot of them are going to, rather than cold calling, they're going to be more receptive if they get a referral or a personal introduction from someone. It could be from a customer. It could be from perhaps the local MEP, like Catalyst Connection. So thinking about, is there a way to get a personal introduction? Utilize your LinkedIn network to try to find that introduction for you. They're going to want to know, do you have the design for that DFM, the design for manufacturing requirements outlined, and does that fit with the equipment that they have, the processes that they have in their plant? So when I think about design for manufacturing, it involves designing parts or products so that they meet the critical needs of an application. And it also involves making sure that it's designed for optimal, efficient, and cost-effective manufacturing processes. Discussing costs. So think about who's going to, if you go to the manufacturer and you've got your preliminary designs, but then through the prototyping process, the design changes through a collaboration between you and the contract manufacturer. But who owns those new design changes? Also, think about the when I call it the bill of process. A lot of people have heard of bill of materials. So those are the parts, the materials going to be used to make a process. But the bill of process itself, it really details the manufacturing processes for a specific product. So it includes that in-depth information about the machinery, the resources, the equipment layout, the configurations, the tools that are going to be used. So think about, who is going to own that? Who owns that particular intellectual property? Think about raw materials. So the raw materials, components, subcomponents, who's going to be doing the sourcing for all of that, and who's going to be paying for it? So is that going to be something that you'll do all yourself, or will you be looking for help from the contract manufacturer for this? So a lot of details to think about. So a few other things to keep in mind, that it's going to go a long way toward building a strong relationship if they meet you in person. So I would, particularly with the type of relationship you're looking to build, I would always want to meet the contract manufacturer in person. So bring pictures or examples with you, any models or prototypes that you might have. And we already mentioned meeting the earlier, the better. So questions to ask the manufacturer when you do meet them. So how do they handle intellectual property today? So I would urge you to get an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, to have that put in place before you start sharing the secret sauce of your particular products or your concept. As you get to know the manufacturer, do your research about them and try to get a feel for, what drives them. Is it about building revenue? Is it about building relationships? Is it about adding to their long-term customer base? And as you're doing that, think about yourself. What is important to you? Is it high quality products or good service or on-time delivery? Somebody that's going to manage the entire process for you. What's critical for you? So this is going to help you define your pitch, because you are going to have to pitch to them to get them interested in working with you. If you don't have an existing process for revision control, ask the contract manufacturer what process they use, because there's going to be revisions, down before you get to that final product. So you want to make sure that both you and the manufacturer are on the same page with these revisions as they come up. When you have your first meeting with them, so a credible business plan can go a long way. So it's something that shows that you've done your homework, you understand the customer, you understand the need, you have a good feel for what the market size could be for this product, so that they see that, okay, there is an opportunity for profitable production runs here. So, I just highlighted some things about evidence in terms of, do you know what the customer requirements are? What the product requirements are for your particular product? Talking too much here, losing my voice. Quality metrics. So what's, in terms of quality control, how are you going to measure the quality of your particular products? Are there certain, depending on the nature of the market that you're selling into and the type of product, are there any particular regulatory approvals or certifications that are required for that particular product? Do you have technical drawings that you can share with them that have the dimensions, any critical tolerances? Depending on where you are, you may or you may not. Certainly a bill of materials. If you are already working with suppliers, who are those suppliers? Given the nature of the environment that we live in today with COVID, there have been supply chain issues. So if supply chain issues come up, are there acceptable substitutions that you've already thought about that you can share with the manufacturer? Financial resources. Unfortunately, this, it's kind of a painful topic to everybody, but you've got to think about this. So, okay, do you have the financial resources, or who's going to be responsible for paying for tooling costs, component materials, distribution once your product is ready to sell, those distribution costs? So is that all coming from you, or do you have partners or VC partners, or are you looking? Is this an idea that you might want to, or you'd be interested in licensing to the manufacturer or some portion of that? So it becomes more of a more in-depth relationship, I should say. So a real partnership. So something to think about before you meet with the manufacturer. So let's talk about 10 tips for working with these folks. And the first two, we've already talked about. It's building that relationship. So, and part of building relationship is, being responsive, meeting with them face to face. I always like to, think, people first, business later. So they're people, get to know them as a person. Think long-term, not short-term when you're working with them. Number two is doing your homework. So thinking about what materials need to be used to produce your product. What manufacturing process would you like, or do you think is going to be needed to produce your process? And do some research, have an understanding of what that is, whether it's, if your product, I don't know, whatever the different materials are, whether it's carbon steel or cold rolled steel or whatever it is, think, have at least a basic understanding of what those materials are. So everybody likes to think that they're a good communicator. And I know with whatever your product idea, you've been thinking about it for a long time. You've probably got a ton of sketches that you've gone through over the time that you've been thinking about this. You've described it, at length to your parents, your significant other. It's fantastic and you're so excited. But talking to the manufacturer is going to be a little bit different. So, you have to think about how are you going to communicate your idea to the manufacturer. A drawing is great, but the drawing doesn't get across all the details that you want to show. So you don't want to make assumptions about what you're expecting from the final product. So utilize their expertise in the manufacturing process. So think about how are you going to communicate your idea so that the manufacturer really understands what your product is. Be precise. So if you leave part of your design up for interpretation, you're putting yourself at risk. So the manufacturer, they may contact you or they might make an educated guess about what it is. Excuse me. So they may have a good sense of what it is, where you are going, but why leave it to chance? It's better to, I'm losing my voice. Better to have a good understanding. And, don't leave things up for interpretation. Oh, geez. Didn't realize I skipped a page. Okay. Rely on their judgment. They've been doing this for a lot of years, so they can foresee things that perhaps you don't, because perhaps you don't have expertise in this particular manufacturing process. So they could help you avoid some problems. If you have timelines that you're working toward, maybe it's a trade show, maybe it's a certain season, whatever that timeline is, tell them up front. Make sure they're going to be able to meet it for you. And it's best that put some sort of timeline in place. If you leave it completely open-ended, things aren't going to get done. Ask a lot of questions. So I like to, tell people, talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old. Let's make this really simple so that I understand exactly what you're telling me. I also like to ask the question, if I'm in your shoes, I would want to say, if you've worked with other, you're talking to the contract manufacturer. If you've worked with other designers and entrepreneurs, what are 3 things that they did wrong when they're working with you? Or when you think about the best designers or entrepreneurs you've worked with, what was that sets them apart, that made them the best in your mind? So the reason for asking these questions is going to help you see, okay, how do I need to position myself? How am I going to make it easier for them to work with me? Because remember, you're pitching yourself. You're going to want them to work with you. So just things to think about. Understanding unit economics. So that means understanding, what is the cost going to need to be for your product to be successful? So if they're making sure the manufacturer is going to want to know that, so that could dictate what type of manufacturing process or what material that you're using to meet those specific economics. So do you plan to scale production, or do you envision scaling at some point in time? How fast are you going to be scaling up? And, what's your long-term vision? Are you going to use a contract manufacturer during the short or midterm and eventually bring production in-house? Or is this a long-term thing? This could be a partnership where the contract manufacturer works with you as you scale, and if they have the capabilities to do so. And don't overpromise. It's easy to get, it's your baby, it's natural to be super excited, but, be honest with, where you're at and where it's going to be and how long you think it's going to take to get to that end point.
Connie, if you don't mind, before we move forward, can we go back to tips 4 and 5, just to make sure, since it flipped,
yeah.
we were ready to move on, just to make sure that people catch.
Yeah.
And one more.
Okay.
There it is. Okay. So I think Ben Town, is that what you had a question on?
Yeah, not so much the slides, but the content. There seems to be some conflict between 4 and 5, the tips, about being super precise about everything, but then also sort of trusting the judgment of the manufacturers.
Well, being precise about, what about, let me see. So, it depends on your area of expertise. Let me say that. So if you have a strong manufacturing background and you know exactly how this product needs to be produced, that's one thing. But if you don't, perhaps, the problem that you're trying to solve with this particular product, but if you don't have the manufacturing expertise, at that point, I would rely on the contract manufacturer. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So it really depends on your background. Are there other questions? How am I doing on time? Okay, so just to common mistakes to avoid. One, relates to the prototyping phase. So thinking that once you've got a working prototype, that's it, you're good to go. But the fact is, when you're developing a new product, it's common, you go through a lot of iterations. And with, the initial prototype is often just that proof of concept. There's still a lot of work to get to that manufacturing readiness level. So just keep that in mind. Another mistake that folks sometimes make is not realizing that prototypes need to be made to explore the design for manufacturing option. So, and I would say that's one thing where a contract manufacturer can help with. Maybe you've got an idea of how this product should be manufactured, but some contract manufacturers have a lot of expertise in looking at your existing design and what you're thinking about having it manufactured, but coming up with new ways that could help you save cost in the long run. So, it's good to kind of just be open to their suggestions. Also think, because there are going to be probably multiple prototypes, who's going to cover the cost for that? Chances are it's going to be you. And thinking about how are you going to cover the cost of those prototypes? So when working with a manufacturer, it's the better relationships and the more success comes out of if you start into that relationship with well-defined and documented customer requirements. You've got at least some early working prototypes. So even if they're very rough, a lot of times my initial prototype when I'm working with entrepreneurs, it's on paper. Or, it's just, out of, it's not the final product. It's just out of like miscellaneous types of components, just to give us an idea and to let the customer play with it to say, okay, it makes sense. So there's early working prototypes and functional specs for the manufacturer. A few other things. When you start vetting manufacturers, deciding on who you're going to work with based solely on price probably is not the best thing. You need to think about quality. There may be other things, their prior experience in working with micro manufacturers or entrepreneurs. If you're talking to a manufacturer that's used to basically all they do is produce huge volumes, but you're looking at perhaps tens, perhaps a quantity of 5 or 10 or 20, and they're used to producing 500,000, that's not going to be a good fit. So they should have some experience, some willingness to work on the scale that you need them to. Contracts. So it's always a good idea to have a comprehensive contract. And that might mean, at some point working with bringing in legal expertise. So that how do you handle if problems with production comes up, if payment problems come up, if expectations aren't met, who's going to be held accountable or how are you going to resolve that? So assuming the product quality is strictly the contract manufacturer's responsibility, and that's just not the case. It's going to be your responsibility as well as theirs. Selecting, if you've got critical long lead time parts or materials or components that go into your product, selecting sole suppliers, particularly in today's environment where there are some supply chain issues. You may want to rethink, whether you want to have a sole supplier for that. So just something to keep in the back of your mind. And last is just not realizing how important scheduling is for manufacturers. So, they're going to be focusing their production process on lead times and, are there substitutions that can be made when they can't get certain parts in their bill of materials? The availability of equipment. If they've got strategic customers that take priority, just they're going to be planning their production schedule around certain things. So, and also, their inventory constraints that they may have. So all of these are just understanding the mindset of a contract manufacturer. So Are there questions? I mean, there's a lot of information. I hope that was of some help as you start working with these folks. Does anybody have any questions?
Feel free to unmute yourself and if you have a question.
And I will mention that there's my contact information at any points if you want to reach out.
Right. Well, I think maybe people are warming up, but I do have a question, Connie, for you. So I get asked a lot in regards to like brand sizes. When do you, there are so many, as startups, as founders go out and are, quote unquote, shopping and figuring out who might be a good match to work with. Most of these folks may want to have a smaller run size because they need to test and put it out in front of some beta testers and then maybe increase the production and things like that, because you want to avoid maybe like having things sitting idle for a while.
Correct.
How do you either negotiate or bring up what could be a good run size for for someone who's just starting out and they need smaller size, and they need to work with someone who has smaller size products?
Yeah, well, you're probably going to go through, an alpha testing, which might be, just people that testing your particular product. And then, there might be some tweaks based on the feedback. And then there could be alpha or beta testing after that, where it's perhaps a group of potential customers, or at least folks that meet that, criteria for a target customer. One thing I would encourage is to put together a basically, whether it's an alpha test or a beta testing protocol, so that so that you get reasonable feedback. So how many people do you want to use your product? How long are they going to be using your product, or how much time you want them to spend using your product? What types of questions are you going to ask them to say, okay, did this meet your expectations? Did it do what it was supposed to? What would you change about it? Just so that you're getting feedback that's going to help you improve your final design. So putting that sort of protocol in place. And when you get to the beta testing site, like a stage, I mentioned sometimes people are doing this with prospective customers. So it might be something where, in order to secure them as a beta tester, maybe you're giving them discounts if they decided to purchase the product, or perhaps they get to use it for free for 6 months, and then whatever they could decide to keep it, or whatever the hook is to secure them. So something to think about. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah. It does. Do you know sort of like what could be good run sizes for a beta test protocol, or is that depends?
It depends. Well, it depends on the type of the product. I mean, it's been anywhere, the companies that I've worked with, 5 to 20 beta tests. It just, it sort of depends on the nature of the product.
Got it. Right.
And the cost that goes into that prototype too. So remember, these are small companies. You may not have the resources. So, which also, if you're producing 5 prototypes that are going to be costly, you want to make sure that you got the best possible candidates to be those beta testers. That's going to give you the best feedback. And also, ideally, they're going to buy the product. They're going to give you a testimonial, something that's going to, help you during your launch.
That's right. Yeah, it's not just about, I mean, quality beta testers. That's something that would be extremely important too, especially, with the first iterations, you need as much feedback as possible.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the audience? Right. The presentation definitely was very, very clear. So I'm happy with that. Okay, well, I'll ask one more question. In regards to building connections with small manufacturing, does Catalyst Connections have like a network or, of small manufacturers that maybe meet on the regular basis? How do startup founders find them, or like what is a good way to connect with them?
I would definitely, so let me ask a question before I answer that. Everyone that's on the call, are they in this region or are some people outside of Southwest PA? Do you know?
Folks on the call are mostly from the greater Pittsburgh region.
Okay. So yeah, I would say, to reach out to Catalyst, we can talk to you about, okay, what are the requirements that you need from that contract manufacturer? And then we can help you with matchmaking to find that group that could do it. If you're outside the region, there's, like I said, we have partner organizations across the US. So if you're looking for a particular capability that isn't available in Southwestern PA, we can reach out to partners, whether it's nationwide or just, if you want to go, 200 miles, a radius of 200 miles, we can reach out to partners within that radius.
Excellent.
So.
Right. Last call for questions.
I'll also mention that when you start looking for components or anything that, because of the national network, we help with supplier scouting. So it's very common, I'll get emails through the intranet that we use, internally within the MEP network, that so-and-so is looking for this particular part or this particular capability. So I can reach out to the network if anybody has a special need.
Sounds good. Definitely. We already put your LinkedIn information and also the website of Catalyst Connection on the chat box. So if you have any follow-up questions or something that you'd like to take maybe offline, please don't hesitate in contacting us and then see how we can help. But if there are no more questions from the audience, just wanted to say thank you, Connie, for really a definitely actionable presentation about what to do and not to do, and very practical advice about how do you really prepare yourself to start working with manufacturers. So thank you for your time and for sharing those tips, and thank you everybody who came in, and reach out with that if you have any more questions, and good luck with everything. If not, I'll see you at the next event.